Hey guys, good morning. Today is May 9th and it's time for another garden tour. So this one is coming a little bit later than when I normally do garden tours. I normally try to do them on the weekends, but this weekend we had a lot of rain for one, and then I also was having just a ton of technical difficulties with, my computer and stuff like that, and I wasn't able to edit videos for a while, so I had to figure all of that out, um, which was not fun. But anyway, so normally I shoot these on the weekends, but today's Tuesday, and I figure, you know, better late than never. So I'm going to show you what's been going on in the garden since the last video I shot. Now, the last video I shot I put up a couple days ago, but I actually filmed it last week. So there will be some differences in the garden, in the spring garden tour between week 6 and I think this is week 7. So yeah, let me show you around. I will say for this one, I haven't been in the garden a lot in the last week. One, because of the weather. We've had a lot of rain. We actually had hail, which was nuts. It hailed for about 10 minutes, very randomly. But it's been a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and stuff just hasn't been looking very good. And I have to admit, I've been avoiding the garden a little bit. I finally came out here and just did a walkthrough the other day, which normally I do like 2 walkthroughs a day, but just because I'm so excited about everything. But anyway, so some stuff isn't looking very great, but I'm going to show you anyway. And so this is just what my garden looks like right now. A lot of this process is just me documenting it, and I got to show the beautiful and the not so beautiful. So let's get into it, and we'll start with the blackberries that I'm sitting right next to. So last week with the blackberries, we talked about how they're starting to get buds on them, which is really cool. And so there's buds everywhere on here. But the big thing that happened this week is, ta-da, we have blackberry flowers. So this means pretty soon here, we are going to have blackberries. So most of the buds are still closed at this point, but there's a couple flowers coming up. Now on to the strawberry green stalk. So this is something that isn't looking so great, but it's okay. So for one thing, I need to water these. It's funny because when it rains, I forget to water everything. And these green stalks, because they're underneath the patio, I kind of forget about them. They don't actually get any water except for if it's windy and raining. So you can see these look a little dry. They look a little, worse for the wear, but it's okay. Start babying them again and hopefully they'll bounce back from my neglect. Here's the other green stalk. This is our cool weather experiment. Some of it is, even though it doesn't look great, it's doing kind of well. Same deal here. I need to water these. They're doing okay. These got more damaged actually because of the heat wave we had right before we had it cooled down and we had rain again. So you can see this guy got really damaged in the 90-degree weather that we had 2 weeks ago. So the weather's kind of been up and down, but there's still stuff growing in here. Here's our herb bed from kind of a different angle than what we normally get. And everything is still kind of kicking in here. I still have this cilantro that bolted and it's starting to flower here. I've never actually seen cilantro flowers before. That's really pretty. So yeah, this is going to turn into, cilantro and coriander are the same thing, but if you ever heard of coriander seeds, the spice, it's basically cilantro seeds. And this, which I wasn't sure was a weed or not, pretty sure now it's chamomile. Okay, let's see if this is actually chamomile. Oh yeah, that's chamomile. Okay, so this is totally staying. This is not a weed. I put that there. I forgot that I put that there, but I put that there. And the ladybugs have been all over this stuff too. And last week I showed you what a ladybug larva looked like because I saw one on here. And I'd never, until I started gardening, I'd never seen a ladybug larva before, and they look kind of freaky. So yeah, I'm going to leave all of this. I think it's pretty cool. And then the green onions, I'm going to let these flower too, just because I think onion flowers are really pretty. They remind me of Dr. Seuss, so I think I'm going to leave these. We'll see what happens. So here's something that we noticed in the middle of all the rain that we had last week. Our majestic apricot tree, which doesn't have very many apricots on it, but the foliage has been really pretty. It is actually infested with aphids. You guys see that? That's pretty gross. And it's not the entire tree, but they have sections of leaves that are just covered. So this is something that has not been great. So we've gone back and forth on really what to do about this tree. Do we want to spray it and kill all the aphids? How do we want to go about getting rid of them? You know, trying to figure out why they're here in the first place, all those different things. And I'm kind of wondering if the tree is, even though it looks really good and looks really green, I'm wondering if it kind of got sick when we had, you know, whether that was our freezing nights and then it got a little bit warmer and then this tree bloomed and then it got cold again. I'm wondering if it had anything to do with the crazy weather that we had, where it was also just raining a lot more than it normally does here and all the flowers fell off. I'm kind of wondering if all of those things are a perfect storm of what's affecting this tree. And now seeing that it has aphids on it, I'm not sure what's causing them, but there's a lot of them on certain leaves. And so I'm doing some research on it. But anyway, in the meantime, we've talked a lot about whether or not we want to spray the tree, kill all the aphids, all of that kind of stuff. And I'm always really hesitant to spray anything, even the organic stuff. I always want to just kind of wait as long as possible because I know I could totally, you know, kill the majority of these aphids with neem oil or something like that. But if I spray this tree with something like that, it's definitely going to kill the aphids, but it's also going to kill any beneficial insects on it too. And I have seen ladybugs on this tree. So I'm always kind of leaning towards letting the beneficials come in and help out. And so what we've been doing is we've just been squishing, you know, coming out here for a couple minutes every day and just kind of like squishing all the aphids. And there's a lot of them. There's definitely a lot of them. But that makes my heart feel a little bit better because I would hate to come out here, spray this whole tree and kill a bunch of ladybugs and a whole bunch of ladybug larvae if they have found these aphids as a food source. So anyway, we might still end up spraying. I don't know, but I always try and like stall as long as I possibly can on that to give the beneficials a chance to catch up and then do things that are more time consuming, honestly, is rubbing them all off by hand. It's a lot more time consuming, but that's where I feel like we're at right now. And like I said, it might get really intense and we might end up spraying, but that's the decision for this week. We'll see if it changes next week. And next to the apricot tree, we have our peach tree, which got sick really early in the season, and it's doing about the same. The fruit is getting bigger, but it's lost a lot of leaves because of the leaf curl. So that's something that we will work on in the fall and winter. But it's kind of too late to do anything about it now from the advice that we got. Here's the grape arch. It's doing its thing too. It's going a little wild and crazy, which I actually kind of love. We might end up trimming or kind of tucking some of these tendrils that are going off into the wild on their own. We talked about this a lot too, because, you know, right here, the trellis you can see is back there. And then this guy is about 3 feet away from the trellis. And so we talked a lot about if we wanted to kind of pin them to the trellis, but we also don't want to create too much density in the leaves so that they can't dry out or anything, and it might create a spot for disease. So right now we're just kind of letting it do its thing, but this is the grape. It's pretty wild and crazy. Here's what it looks like underneath the arch, which is really great, and it's starting to cover the top. We did notice that there's some sort of sickness right here, and so we're going to clip that and just continue to watch it. But besides this spot right here, the rest of it looks really good. And then here is our other little grape that we had in a pot that we put here. and it's doing really well too. Let's see. I planted some watermelon seeds in here. This cage is only here to keep our dog from stepping on it and so that I would remember where I put them. And it doesn't look like we have anything up yet in there, but I need to clear some of that grass too so it's not choking anything out. But I put a handful of tester watermelon seeds in the bottom there. Black seedless watermelon, I think it was. And nothing's come up yet, but there's another week before it really, should be up. So I'm not too worried about it. Lavender took a beating with all of the rain. And then this like weird mushroom thing started popping up in the middle of it really heavily in the rain. So they don't look as great as they used to, but they're still doing okay. And they should get better as the heat goes on and, they get a chance to dry out a little bit because their roots were probably just a little too wet for what they like. Here is our Meyer lemon tree, and it's flowering. Those flowers are really pretty. So we don't actually expect any fruit from this tree. We might even pick any fruit that comes off of this tree just to give it a chance to establish. This was a Meyer lemon that we've had for a couple years, but it lived in a pot and it's always been really sickly just because we didn't know how to take really good care of it. But it's been a lot happier here since we put it in the ground here. So we might just take any fruit off just to give it a chance to, really get comfortable its first year in the ground here, because we just planted this, I want to say in December or January of this year, and so we might want it to just focus on establishing its root system and getting really healthy here and not really paying any attention to producing fruit. So we'll see. And then here is our, what we think is a navel orange tree, just because this tree was really sick last year, but we found one navel orange on it randomly in December. So we think it's a navel orange tree and it's doing a lot better now. And then next to it, we have our clementine tree, our cutie tree. So nothing really to report here except the flowers are falling off of both of them. And you can see here, fruit is starting to form behind where all the flowers were. So we'll have to thin this tree for sure just because it's covered in fruit. And that's just too much for one little tree. But overall, it's looking pretty good. On the other side of our yard, we have a lime tree. This is the same deal as the lemon that I showed you. It's one that we brought over here in a pot, and it looks a million times better than it did before. So it has been very happy in this spot. And oh, it's starting to produce little fruit too. So same deal. We haven't really decided yet if we're going to leave the fruit or take it off, but we'll decide soon. This is our gala apple tree. This is one that we bought a couple months ago and put in. It's doing okay. It has a little bit of sickness up here. You can see that the leaves are a little discolored. But overall, I mean, we thought this tree had died because of the crazy rainstorms we had. And so we're just trying to, figure out what we need to do to keep it healthy, but it's still alive for right now. So we'll see. And then right next to it, we have one of the tomato trellises that we put in last week. So this is all Roma tomatoes in the front of the trellis here, and then behind it, I put, just a couple herbs. It's like mostly basils and stuff like that, just to kind of grow underneath the tomatoes. And then on the end there, I put more watermelon seeds. So we'll see if those come up. And this is what those tomatoes look like close up. So they've grown quite a bit actually since we planted them here, and they look pretty good. They look pretty happy. So these Romas are doing pretty well. They got a little beat up with the rain and stuff too, but you can see there's some leaves that don't look great back here. But overall, they made it through the storm. Let's take a look down here. So yeah, this is where I put some watermelon seeds. I don't know if they're gonna come up. And then these are just extra snapdragons that I had just to, plant them somewhere just to see what'll happen. And then back here, underneath this tree. This is borage. This got planted, I want to say 2 weeks ago. And as you can tell, it's a little worse for the wear. So there's these holes in it. It might be because something's eating it, but it might also be because of the hail we had. A lot of plants after the hailstorm just ended up with holes in a lot of the leaves. So I think this looks more like something has been chomping on it. But it's still here. So I think that it'll be able to make a comeback. This is our Honeycrisp apple tree. It came with a house, but we did move it over into this corner. We relocated it and it looks happy. Not much to report here. So this is an update from last week. This was a huge bush that is, you can't see it, but it's all growing out of a stump in the middle there. And it's this huge bush thing and it's kind of spread everywhere. So Andrew came down here the other day and clipped it. It was as tall as I was. I think it was actually taller than me. So he came down here and clipped a bunch of it off. And this stuff right here is like this weird sticky weed that we have. Andrew told me the name of it because someone told him, but I forgot what it was. So anyway, we pulled this out everywhere. But he came out here and he said that in the middle of, you know, chopping this massive thing down, which we thought was just a random bush that we didn't want, he actually found a cherry and he tasted it. He said it didn't taste very good. So I'm wondering if it actually is growing out of the rootstock of what used to be a cherry tree here. But yeah, so that changes our minds a little bit about this bush and completely getting rid of it. And you can see, this is why we thought it was just a random, we didn't know what it was. It was actually really pretty when it was flowering, but you can see there's like little pieces of it everywhere. This is our blueberry patch. Here, these all did flower and we did, for the most part, take the flowers off. So we're not expecting blueberries this year. We just want these plants to get really healthy. And we have 7 blueberry plants in here, and the idea is you can see the perimeter of this bed that Andrew's been building out. We're going to put other acid loving plants in here that can kind of grow well with the blueberries. And also in this bed is our other Honeycrisp apple. This one also came with the house and we didn't move this one, so it's doing pretty well here. And all of its flowers are done, so maybe we'll get apples. I don't know. We didn't get anything last year, but for the most part with these trees, we're just wanting them to be healthy more than anything for the first couple years, so we'll see. Okay, so now let's talk about our raised beds, which is the main part of our garden, really. It's where we're growing the most stuff. There isn't much new that's happening in these, so I'm going to go through them probably fairly quick. I know I say that every time, but I'm going to be looking really for the new stuff and just kind of giving an overview of everything else. But for the most part, what we have to show here that's new, unfortunately, is damage from the weather and, you know, the hailstorm and all of that kind of stuff. So I want to document this part, even though it hurts my soul. I don't want to show it, but it's part of it, right? Like plants are gonna get damaged, things are gonna get eaten. That's just part of gardening. And it also is helpful to remember that every time I've had failures in the garden, I've had a lot of failures in the garden, I've had a ton of successes, and sometimes those successes come from those exact same plants. So let me show you what our garden has looked like after a really weird rain and hailstorm. Okay, so first off, just to go over it for anyone who might be new, we have 3 beds that are 4x16 here, 3 beds in the middle that are 4x8, and then 3 beds that are 4x16 on the other side over here. And so we're going to start in this back bed right here. So these peppers looked better last week. You can see they're spotted, they're yellow, the leaves are curled. All of the peppers are suffering a little bit because we went from having the perfect weather for them with the 50-degree nights and the, you know, days in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, to going to 40-degree nights and days in the 60s. So you can tell they all kind of suffered. And then to get the rain on top of that, they were just not happy. And then this, I realized this is a carrot. we ended up burying it. So this right here, we had a few things growing in these beds when we amended them. They were about halfway full, and there were some things that we just, cut as a loss so that we could completely amend and fill our beds and plant the rest of our spring, summer, fall, because we have a long season here, stuff in them. So as a category, it would be our summer stuff. So anyway, one of those things was carrots. The carrots weren't doing very well. They'd been mowed down by rabbits a few times, and they were just really puny, and so it wasn't really worth it. They were going to bolt anyway, so we just buried them. But this is a surviving carrot, a lone carrot that decided it wasn't done trying. So I'm going to leave it there, just to leave it there. We'll see what it does. I'm not expecting a carrot off of that. That's, it just is there, but I like the fight in it, so I'm just gonna let it be there. And right next to this carrot is a zucchini, so you can see it has these holes in it, and these holes I don't think are actually from something eating it. These showed up right after the hailstorm, so I think this one is just because of hail. Now there might be things eating it now, but those holes were new as soon as that hailstorm was done, which is kind of sad. So yeah, this is the rest of that bed. There's a lot of peppers. We have some chamomile. This is a tomatillo that is doing pretty well, all things considered. Here's another tomatillo. That's one that didn't come up, so I'll plant something else there. But yeah, and then the rest of this bed is mostly peppers until you get to the end. And here I have 4 super sweet 100 cherry tomatoes. So they're here, 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 and oh no, this is a marigold. They're here, 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 and here. So those are all cherry tomatoes, and they'll be trellised up once they get bigger, but they're getting to a pretty decent little size here. Normally when I put out starts, they are this size or bigger, honestly. But all of my seedlings got stunted this year, and so we're working with what we got. This is what we had when it was time to plant things out, and so that's what we're doing. Well, the garlic is doing pretty well. It's just chugging along, doing its thing. We're waiting for all of this garlic to be done, and it's starting to really yellow, which is nice. And down here, there's an Armenian cucumber that I transplanted from the other side of the garden. It's doing really well. Oh, no, that's not for you. You can go over here. And these sweet peas, we've actually gotten sweet peas off of these, and which is great because we weren't expecting it. So we've gotten a couple peas off of these. We have some other plants that I'll show you that are actually pretty strong. But you can see here, these little ones are still producing pretty good peas at the same time. Well, here's something new. So I started these, or I planted these seeds a couple weeks ago. So this is new. This honey nut is just sprouted. And back here, we have Black Lake pole beans. So those are new also. In this bed, we have some of the noodle beans that I planted. They're starting to come up. Hey guys, welcome to the world. So I planted them up to about halfway on this trellis, and you can see there's one coming up right there, and there's one coming up right there. So these will be big and lovely, hopefully someday soon. Oh, and here's something. Here is a honey nut. To get in here with all this crazy garlic, here's a honey nut that is just starting to come up. So sometimes when I have a plant and I see it like this and it's covered a little bit, I just help it out a little by moving some of the stuff on it. But that is a new baby honey nut. Over here we have something new. Let's see what that is. I think it's a sunflower. Yeah, this is a autumn beauty sunflower, and you can see something has already, decided to start eating it. So hopefully that guy makes it. Over here, there was an Armenian cucumber that I also transplanted right here that didn't make it. And I've given it a lot of time at this point. So I give it about 2 weeks. and it's done. So I'm gonna plant something else there. Here's one of our tiny but mighty pea patches, and it's doing fairly well. We've harvested a lot off of this. We've actually harvested off of these plants twice in the last week, and it looks like it's, you know, time to come out here again, which is really great. Our farmers market tomatoes are doing really well. This one is a Hungarian heart, and then I have a yellow brandywine over here. So these are really big, so it's actually past time for me to trellis these up. But I'm going to trellis these up onto this arch here with string, and I'll show you how I do that when I do it. They have a little marigold friend, and lots of peas on this side too. These little tiny eggplants. These little tiny eggplants are doing a lot better, so I think they're gonna make it at this point. There's another little guy there. We have another new honey nut. And what is this? This is, oh, it's a watermelon. Excellent. So this is gonna be a yellow watermelon. So this little guy, this yellow watermelon, is actually a seed I saved from a watermelon that we grew in our old garden. And it was one of those plants where we just kind of let it grow. It was sickly, but we wanted to see what it would do. We'd never grown watermelon before, and we didn't think we were going to get anything off of it. And then one day, one random day, we were, you know, cleaning up the beds a little bit, and we found 3 yellow watermelons in the back of this gigantic plant, which was super exciting. One of them actually had fallen to the ground and split open, and that's how we knew that they were all yellow, because they were actually yellow on the inside. They're green on the outside. But yeah, so I decided to save the seeds from it. It tasted okay, because we didn't really figure out the water ratios that it needed. Like I said, the plant was a little bit sick. It was the first time we'd ever tried growing watermelon, and we kind of give ourselves a lot of grace for that. You know, if a plant is not necessarily looking its best, we don't necessarily kill it or take it out or anything like that, because a lot of it is just a learning curve for us, because we've never grown it before. So anyway, this was one of the seeds from that, and this was, yeah, our 2021 garden. And so I'm excited to see how this does here. I'm excited to see what it tastes like, and either way, I'm just really happy to know that these seeds were viable, and we get to kind of try that same plant again from our old garden, but we get to try it in a new garden in a new conditions, and with, you know, hopefully the better living experience for this plant, since we've learned a few more things. So we'll see. Next to the watermelon is another Autumn Beauty sunflower that will grow hopefully big and frame the side of this trellis if it survives the birds. So good luck, little guy. This is a zucchini, I think. Oh, yellow squash. You can just see from the tags and how dirty they are how much splashback came up onto all of these plants, and it's not great for them. But anyway, this yellow squash I don't think was there in the last tour, so that's something new also. Here is a pretty crazy carrot patch. We're gonna have to take these up pretty soon, because I think they're actually, yeah, I think they're starting to bolt. Yeah, oh yeah. So we were gonna actually leave these carrots in here for another 2 weeks, just because there's not much going on in the garden right now, and I wanted any place that could feel full to feel full. And I don't think they're gonna make it. I think it's gonna be too hot, because we're also now getting back into days in the 80s and 90s, and well, yeah, these are definitely bolting. So we might actually be harvesting these little carrots in the next couple days here. It's pretty sad, but the foliage is nice. So I don't expect carrots to be a decent size down here at all. We pulled one up and it was super, super puny, but that's okay, because what we do with the tops is we actually make carrot top pesto. We use the same recipe basically as we do with basil pesto, but it's a way to kind of use more of the plant, especially if you have all of this foliage and, you know, there's there's not much carrot underneath it. So it's a good way to just kind of use up a little bit more of what you have. Planted another yellow watermelon here. It looks like that guy hasn't come up yet, and that's okay. This plant got really smashed in the bad weather. I thought this was basil, but it doesn't feel like basil. Oh, it smells like basil. That's totally basil. So yeah, it got kind of beat up. A lot of stuff got beat up. Here we have a couple more eggplants. They're right across from those other eggplants we saw, and they're still surviving. They're way smaller than the eggplants I normally put out, but they're here. Let's see. So this is our best looking pea patch right here. We get a lot of peas off of this in the last couple days. But one thing I always forget about, and I don't think I mentioned, is I actually planted some tomato plants underneath here with the idea that they would get bigger as these peas were kind of finishing up. But I think they're kind of getting stunted a little too much because these pea plants are massive, and I think they're just taking up too much sun. See, I have another tomato plant here and another tomato plant here, and I think these are all cherries. Oh no, these are all Amish pace. These tomatoes will get really, really big, but right now, this is the biggest one of these three, and probably because it's on the end, it's not shaded as much. So I might need to cut these back, especially for this one in the middle here, because I think they're shading them from all of the morning sun and then they get shaded in the afternoon because of the building. So I might need to do something about these to just give these guys a fighting chance. What is this? Wipe off that tag a little bit. This is zucchini. So I think this one did come up last week, but it's gotten a lot bigger. And you can see it got, you know, not super happy with the hail and stuff, but it's still chugging along. And then this is the rest of this bed with peppers. There's a yellow sunflower right there, that red tag. So these peppers don't look great, but they're still here. So it's kind of how I garden. It's not dead yet. There's still a chance. All right, now we're gonna do the 3 middle beds, which this is our cut flower garden experiment. I've never grown this many flowers before. I've never grown most of these flowers before, and I've never grown them this way before. So all of this is just a huge experiment, but there's some things that don't look so great in here. One thing that does look really happy is these tomatoes. So these are all Roma tomatoes, and they have been super happy in this spot. So I'm really grateful for these. All 3 of them are just pretty majestic looking. They've grown a lot since I planted them here, and so these are going to need to be trellised up pretty soon too. These are all Cosmos. As you can see, I definitely have not pinched them yet because they're basically growing on one stalk. If you kind of cut these, they will start growing offshoots, and so the plants will get bushier, and then you'll get more flowers. So pruning these is something that I've been putting off because I was going to make a video about it, and I wanted to make a video about, you know, pinching everything, but things are realistically, they're growing at different times and they're not all ready to be pinched on the same day, which that makes a lot of sense. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and do it, and maybe put out the instructions that I can. I need to figure that out, but at this point I've been overthinking it, and these plants are just way taller than they need to be as far as, you know, growing on one stalk. At this point, I'm just not getting as much as I could off of these plants. This is the other part of it for me, especially with documenting more this year, is trying to find the balance of what is interesting and what is helpful for other people to see, and when I just need to kind of film it and get it done because it needs to be good. It needs to be done. The rest of this bed is looking, I mean, it's okay. This is the bed where we have, you can tell, just crazy issues with grass in this bed. There's a little flower in the middle of that, so I need to come out here and weed this a little bit to give these a fighting chance. But this is the bed where we have the most issues with grass. You can see it's like coming out on all the sides. This is the next bed. it's looking okay actually. Um, these are starting to get bigger than I thought they were. I think these are, I think these here are all snapdragons, but I mean, these cosmos are starting to bush out a little bit. I think they'd be better if I pinched them off, but there's multiple heads on here, so these are looking happy. There's some stuff up there that obviously didn't make it, and that's okay. But like I said, this is all an experiment. And then what we have here, what I've been noticing is stuff has been eating my zinnias. So part of it, I think, is bugs, but I think a lot of this damage is actually birds. And then we have 3 more tomatoes on the end here. Last week I mentioned that these had leaf curl on them, so let's take a look. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so the leaves are curling a little bit, and they're a little discolored, but I think a lot of this is actually just due to the weather and not necessarily because they're getting sick from this straw. And I say that also because the other set of them that we just looked at are looking really healthy. So I don't love the amount of leaf curl on these, but I'm not alarmed yet. Sometimes tomatoes just grow a little weird too. But I know they have not been particularly happy with the weather we've been having. Let's see, this one looks better. It only has a little bit of leaf curl on it. So I'm gonna give it more time. In this bed, yeah, you can see something has been enjoying this zinnia and eating it alive. Same with all the other zinnias, they don't look very great. This right here makes me think birds are involved in these huge pieces that are taken out. I also see birds in these beds every morning. So yeah, look at this. This is not great. And some of these holes I know came from the hail also. But that does not spark joy. Oh man, look at these. These are my dahlias. Look at that. And then here are the worst ones. These are marigolds, which normally bugs don't touch. And they've been eaten to basically nothing. Look at that, that's really sad. I'm pretty bummed about this. I'm not gonna lie. This has been one of the things, once I saw just how much these were getting eaten down, these marigolds, I started to get really discouraged. This, I am pretty sure, has been done by, we get doves in our yard, and every morning I see them kind of picking around. Hey, buddy, have you come to cuddle? Oh, okay. Hi, buds. Yes, that's too close to my face. Every morning I've seen doves, and I can see them from the window picking at these. And yeah, it's just, okay, that's too much. It's just, it's been really discouraging to see these plants get demolished like this. So they make me mad. I call them bougie pigeons just because they make me mad. Yeah, it's a bummer, but it's part of it, I guess. Come, buddy. You don't care. We need some water. Your breath is terrible, buddy. Now we're next to the last 3 16-foot beds, and then right behind them, I have this other tomato trellis. So this is where I have a couple of my last indeterminate tomatoes. So these are going to get really high. This one's Amish paste. This one is Amish paste. This little guy has had a very rough time. It is super tiny, and I thought it died in the storm, but it looks like it's still living. So I'm gonna give it a chance. So here's the end of this row. So we have a few more tomatoes here. We have a couple Romas. There's some super sweet 100s in the middle, and then the end is the Amish paste that I just showed you. And then I have marigolds. See, this is what I'm used to my marigolds looking like. Like, nothing eats them. But I guess I gotta just mix the flowers in with other stuff and not try to grow them in rows as much here. I don't know. We'll see. We'll finish out the season and decide. But back to the beds. So this is zucchini. I think this is the 4th week this has been up. They grow insanely fast, which I love. And you can tell there's, all these holes in it. This I think was from the hail. So you can see where these leaves were really just punctured. But overall the plant looks really good. The sweet alyssum that is grown around it as kind of a companion, it's looking really good. Everything looks pretty happy in these beds. These beds get a lot more sun, and they were also planted out like a week and a half before most of the stuff in the other 16-foot beds. So they've just had more time to establish and get bigger. Here's an okra. It's looking really good. Most of what's in here, most of these are sweet peppers also. Down here, there's okra and different basils. Here's another okra plant that is doing really well. See, this is what I expected all of those marigolds to look like. Nothing eats them. This is what I'm used to. It is what it is. Here's another zucchini plant. Here's my hand for reference. This thing has gotten huge in the last week. Oh, how cute are we? Hey, buddy. How cute are we? My garden dog. This is new. The sunflower is about to bloom. So these should be a lot bigger than this. It should be a lot thicker in the stalk. The leaves should be bigger and all of that, but that's okay. I'm happy to have any sunflowers. And I was going to plant more seeds around it, but I didn't get a chance to last week, so maybe that's something I can get to this week. But I'm excited to see that guy open up. There's another marigold. It's looking pretty happy. Here is an amaranth that's looking really good, minus the tears and all that. It's still pretty big and healthy. We have an Armenian cucumber. This is a Telegraph improved cucumber with some of that hail damage. But yeah, here's another Armenian cucumber, and it's been really damaged. This thing does not look good. So it has some tears in it. Might be birds, might be hail. I think this one looks a lot more like birds. But it's not a great color either, so it's not looking too great. But it's a lot bigger still than it was last week. That is a Parisian gherkin. It's actually 2 of them. I need to get rid of one. Here's another sunflower that is supposed to get a lot bigger before it flowers. But that's what we got. We can always put more seeds in. Now, here's another sunflower that has clearly been eaten by something. Gosh, this makes me so sad. It's just picking at it. And chamomile that's exploded, looking like it's enjoying life. These are noodle beans. This is my noodle bean trellis. It's the first one. The butternut still hasn't come up, and I still haven't replaced it, so that's on my list of things to do. I don't want this side of the trellis to be empty. This is a sunflower, I think. Yep, this is an Autumn Beauty sunflower that just came up, so that's new. This is a dahlia that is a lot bigger than last week. There's a sunflower here somewhere that hasn't come up yet, and then these are Blue Lake beans. And back here we have another honey nut. You can tell we really like honey nuts. And back here we just have mostly flowers. There's a couple peppers back there, but mostly flowers in there. Seem to be overall happy. This is another honey nut on the other side of this trellis. And then we have, same thing, the Blue Lake pole beans with a sunflower to frame the trellis. We got sweet alyssum going crazy here around this yellow squash, which is smaller than the other ones, but it's still a lot bigger than it was. And then this is the other side of the noodle bean arch. So these aren't looking super hot either, but I think that there was a pepper here. There was a very small pepper here, so that's a little sad to lose some, but I know some of them wouldn't make it anyway. And there, yeah, right here too, there was something there. This is a Thai basil. I love these flowers. They're so pretty. I grow them mostly just for the flowers. We eat them a little bit, but I just really like these plants. Here's another marigold that's getting eaten by something. Probably a bird. A sunflower that is about to open. Oh, I'm so excited for that. It's gonna be really pretty. From here, there's not much new down here. But we can take a look at this sunflower. This guy's getting pretty big. It looks like it has multiple heads on it. So that's gonna be cool. Excited for that. And then down here are our hot peppers, and then we have another another yellow squash down there. All right, I came back where we started. Came up the hill. My neighbor down the hill's mowing, and so I wanted to be able to sign off and for you to hear me. So anyway, thank you for touring my garden with me today. This one was hard, I'm not gonna lie. There's something about showing the things that don't look great, whether it's from things that were outside of your control, like the weather, hail, bougie pigeons, things like that coming into your garden, other pests just kind of like eating things up, or the things that were very much inside your control and you just didn't do anything about them. So yeah, this is hard to show it, but it's also a lot of the process, and I think it's important to show it because one of the things that really paralyzed me, especially my first year of gardening, and I still have to talk myself out of this too, is you see other people's gardens and they're perfect and beautiful and immaculate and there's no weeds and everything is lush and so colorful and thought out, and it's easy to think, well, I could never do that, so I'm just not going to do it. And that's what I thought about gardening for most of my life, really. It was, I can't keep plants alive, and they're definitely never going to look like that. All right, I film on my phone, and my phone just told me that I talk too much, and I am out of memory. So anyway, switching gears here. But yeah, one of the things that I thought for so long was, because I can't do this perfectly and in the most ideal way, especially since I have no clue what I'm doing, it's not even worth doing, and it's not worth trying because I don't want to fail. And that is something that gardening is helping me with, and it's been helping me with over the years, is you're gonna fail and do it anyway, and it's worth doing anyway, not just because of the successes or the things that go right, and a lot of things go right, but because of the failures too, because they're lessons learned. So anyway, I hope that this is encouraging for you. If you happen to be, I don't know if anyone is, but if you happen to be a person that's looking at my garden and being like, wow, I could never grow that much stuff, or, her garden is so big and I wish I had that, and, it doesn't, my stuff looks worse, essentially. If you're playing that comparison game, I also want to show the things that are not going well and the things that I just don't do, or for whatever reason, they're just not as beautiful as sometimes we have the expectation of in our head. And I think it's really important to show that, to kind of normalize for people that while you will have a lot of failures, some things will be beautiful and it's still worth doing regardless. So I hope that's a helpful message for you too. Don't get discouraged. I know we all compare, but try to give yourself some grace and kindness through it, and keep trying, keep showing up, and you're gonna get better. Even with my garden looking the way it does right now, which I don't love, it's looked a lot worse. And so I'm really happy that it looks as good as it does, and I know as much as I do to take care of it. So anyway, hope this is helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed this tour, and I am going to stop talking now before this device tells me I am also out of storage. So anyway, have a good day and happy growing. I'll talk to you next time.